All right, well, welcome everybody. We've got 113 people here, which is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. It feels so brilliant to be in the room with people who care as much as the coalition does about this topic of race being complicated. So we wanted to come together. You know, the toolkit's been around since October, and we wanted to get together really and talk to people about how they've been implementing the toolkit, if they have, and what do we need to do next as a profession, really, in relation to bringing about significant changes to our profession and to our clients in relation to anti-oppressive practice. So I'm Nikki Cooper, and I've had the massive honour of being the chair of this coalition for the last 4 years. I'm the clinical director currently of Place2Be, and it's just been, this coalition is just, I can't describe what a huge source of inspiration and energy this has been for me personally, and I think probably the rest of the coalition would agree that we've gained so much just from meeting together and thinking together about how to change things. We've got all of the organisations that are in the coalition are represented here today, and we've put coalition next to the organisational members, so you can see who we all are. And all of the coalition are hugely passionate, dedicated representatives. So, I mean, for people who don't know, the coalition was formally formed in 2019, but it'd been in gestation for quite a long time before that. And it was basically set up in a very broad way to improve the diversity of the psychological therapy professions. So to begin with, the focus was quite broad and not sort of especially focused on any one protected characteristic, but it was acknowledged that both men and people of colour were very underrepresented. So our first successful task, and I have to say there were quite a few sort of not quite so successful tasks along the way, but our first successful task was to identify what we thought were the barriers to a diverse workforce. And we identified those barriers as the cost of training, the training itself being a hostile environment to many people, attraction to the profession, because the profession and the qualification routes is so complicated, and just also not interesting or relevant to huge numbers of people. And finally, that the career pathway was just so confusing. If you want to be a social worker, or you want to be a mental health nurse, or you want to be a teacher, you know exactly what to do. If you want to be a counsellor or a psychotherapist, it's like, well, you can start over here and you could do a level 2, you can do a level, you know, it's all so complicated. So we made a decision that we needed to focus on the start of the journey, which is of course the training. And then in May 2020, George Floyd was murdered, and that seriously focused all of our minds. And there was a massive energy and urgency around the whole topic. And we decided there and then that we were going to definitely focus on race. So we ran a conference for training providers in February 2021, which was called Exploring the Barriers to Inclusion. Just out of interest, can you wave your hand around if you came to that conference? No one. Actually, I can only see one screen at the moment. Anyone see any hands? Apart of this? Oh no, there's a few. Oh, hello, Nicola. Thank you. Great. So we ran this conference in February 2021, and we had some incredible speakers, giants, I'd say, in our profession. Who've all spent many more years than I have anyway, raising awareness and bringing about change. We had Dwight Turner, Faisal Mahmood, Anthea Benjamin, Sharon McLean, Eugene Ellis, Myra Khan, who's here with us and very much part of the coalition, and Joan Sadler. And I should say that since that conference, nearly all of these brilliant people have brought out books, which are absolutely essential reading on all counselling and psychotherapy programmes. I've got a feeling Dwight might have actually brought out 2 since 2000, which, you know, he's pretty prolific. All of these books, including the wonderful Myra Khan's Working Within Diversity, are just a brilliant resource for every programme. So if you're running a programme and you don't have any of those books on your curriculum yet, then please buy them now. Quick sales pitch. Okay, so the conference was really great. It really energized everybody, but the message was clear from all of the training providers. It was, give us a steer on where to start. We have the will, but we are also in a kind of paralysis about where on earth to start, because it felt like there was just too much to do and it was just overwhelming. And so the idea of the toolkit was born. So the coalition decided to commission the toolkit, and we were really fortunate to have someone within Place2Be who was willing to project manage the coalition, bringing together a memorandum of understanding, raising the funds, and making the commission. And Marcelline and Danielle were commissioned as authors of the toolkit. And we've since had over 2,000 downloads of the toolkit, and given that's just for training providers, that's absolutely fantastic. And we know that lots of people have really, really valued it. We launched it in October, and all of the coalition members made pledges about how they were going to continue to promote the toolkit and keep the energy going. And I think that's a bit of the theme today, is how do we keep the energy going? And I think all of our organisations have made progress, but of course, for all the progress that we've made, there's still so much to do. We're still a long way from arriving, and perhaps we never will. I think the topic of race and racism is an ongoing practice and a conversation that never ends. So before you all came today, you were sent a survey monkey, and we didn't have a huge response to the survey, but it was really interesting to read the responses anyway. According to the survey, 60% of the attendees have read the toolkit, and 100% of those who answered the survey found it very helpful or quite helpful. So that's a really good, that's a good finding. 70% of people clicked through from the toolkit to further resources, which was, you know, I know Marcelline and Danielle will be really pleased about that, because we really curated those other resources really, really carefully. And 70% of people would recommend the toolkit to other people. The brilliant thing was that we asked, in the last 6 months, have you made any positive changes to your institution, your programme, or your tutoring with relation to anti-oppressive practice? And 87.5% said yes, which I thought was really great. And what I'm hoping today is that people will be able to talk about some of those changes and how they made them. And then what was the other one I wanted to highlight? The other one was, how hopeful are you that things are improving in relation to safeguarding anti-oppressive practice in psychological therapies training? And 33% said very hopeful, and 67% said quite hopeful. And I was both sort of heartened and in a way not surprised that those of us who are gathered here in the context that it is so hard to keep the energy up, engaging with the race conversation, and how easy it is to get weary. But we're all here today, which is a sort of statement of hope, really. We're here to kind of refuel and get energy from each other. And so hopefully everyone will leave feeling even more hope after today. And so we asked, what are you hoping for from this webinar? 53% said sharing good practice with peers in small groups. And yes, you'll be doing that. 67% were looking forward to an interactive session with the toolkit authors. Very sadly, one of the authors is not well. So you've got this, that's kind of going to be half achieved, but I know that Marcelline will do a brilliant job of being more than 2 people in the room. 47% were looking forward to an interactive session with other counselling leads, and so we'll be hearing from a programme that has implemented the toolkit, so that's good. So yes, let's just have I'm just going to quickly show you the programme for the day, so everybody knows what to expect and when to take a toilet break, because Caroline has very helpfully pointed out that I didn't schedule in a break. So have a look at the programme so that you know what to expect. And it's the first thing. So we're going to start with, just Marcelline telling us about keeping the energy up and what's been happening since the toolkit launch. And then we've got CICS telling us about how they've used the toolkit. We're going to have a short reflections and Q&A at 5 to 5, and then we're going to go into breakout rooms at 5 past 5, and then there'll be a quick plenary and poll, and we'll be closing by 6. That's That's the plan. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome once again Marcelline Menyié, one of the brilliant authors of the toolkit. So it's over to you, Marcelline.
Hi everyone, and welcome. It's so amazing and overwhelming to see so many people attending today, which shows that there are people out there who do want to do the work and who do want to implement and maintain change. So this is really, really great to see. And Nikki, thank you so much for that amazing introduction as well. So you guys said you want an activity with the authors. You've got an activity with the authors. Okay, so apologies again because Danielle is unwell. So you'll just be stuck with me today. So in honor of embodiment and Danielle, who is Queen of Embodiment, Marceline's going to take the lead on this today. I'd like everyone just to get a bit comfortable. If you feel more comfortable turning your camera off, please do so. I'm going to do that myself so that I can remain focused. So make sure your feet are flat on the floor. Stretch if you need to stretch. Notice any sort of tension, any sensations going on in your body. Think about these sensations. What can you hear? What can you feel? What thoughts are racing through your mind? Were you looking forward to coming here today? Did you have some apprehensions about coming here today? Do you feel like you've spoken your truth and your thoughts around the toolkit? What are you hoping to gain from today? How does it feel to virtually be in a room with other people who share the same mission? Just keep relaxing, paying attention to your breath work as well. Keep breathing in and out. And just as you're relaxing, I want to take you on a journey with me. We're just going to go on a little walk together. So pay attention as I'm taking you on this walk with me. Walk with me. Walk with me. The proudness of my race, my culture, is diminished the moment I step outside of my house. Protecting my identity in a multicultural society. When will my feelings become a priority? Do you really understand what it means to be labeled an ethnic minority? People looking at the color and thinking they know the person and its entirety. My parents prepared me for the world before I was even ever prepared for the world. Working twice as hard as my equal, just so that we can be equal. Subconsciously dimming my light so that my blackness is not seen as a threat. If I share my truth, I am angry, I am aggressive, I am dangerous. The color of my skin is intimidating. The education of my culture is condescending. Am I being oppressed? Or am I oppressing myself? Is it transgenerational trauma? I suppose it depends on the adversities I face that day, because I will. Walk with me. where assumptions are made based on the color of my skin. I am seen yet unseen. I am supported yet isolated. Inferior, lesser than. The hardship of fitting my identity into a society that rejects it. My home, my safe space, is the only place I feel elevated, the only place I feel protected. Walk with me. So just keep walking on this journey with me. Notice any feelings and sensations you're experiencing as I tell you about my story, as I use my voice to share my identity and the identity that society has thrown at me. As I share my daily battles, internally and externally. Keep walking. Again, focusing on what's going on in your body. What thoughts are you experiencing right now? Is there something you want to ask me? Is there something that's making you uncomfortable? I just want us to take a few breaths in and out. So breathe in, 3, 2, 1, out. Breathe in again, 3, 2, 1, breathing out. And just one more final deep breath in. Hold it, 3, keep holding, 2, hold it a little bit longer, 1, big breath out. The journey has ended. And now we're ready to share our stories. So when you're ready, slowly bring yourself back into the room. Open your eyes and turn your cameras back on. Is there anyone that wants to share any thoughts they experienced during that little walk? You can also write in the chat if you feel more comfortable doing that instead. Christine?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Brown. That whole thing, what it brought up for me is anger. Anger that people have to experience this. Right. And, my big thing is, right, and I feel very, very strongly about this. Right, that was an experience of internalized racism. And okay, I can do my best to understand that. Actually, and I've said this before in many scenarios, I am a white person. I have to look at the internal oppressor in me, right? Before I seek to understand the internalized racism that Black people and people of color, right, experience, right? Because I'm a representation of an oppressive element in society. I have to start looking at what I do and how I behave, right? And what's in me, right? So for me, that term, ethnic minority, I hate that term, right? Because I think that puts people on the back foot in the first place, right? The different culture, there's a different culture or a different way of being in society. There's no minorities, right? It's a term that disempowers people, right? And, you know, I'm very passionate about this and I get very angry around this, right? But I have to look at me first, right? Me. I'm a white person. I need to do my work, right, on what's inside me. And it is inside me. I'm white. I cannot get away from the fact that I have been brought up in a racist, homophobic, oppressive society. And my color of my skin puts me at the top of the tree, right? Skin color wise, maybe not educationally and maybe not gender wise, right? But I have to look at what that's done for me and how it impacts on how I interact in the world with other people. And I don't think there's enough emphasis put upon white people to do their own work, right? And I just get very angry about it. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you for sharing, Christine. I remember having similar conversations with you at the BACP event, and I think it's, you know, beautiful to hear you say that you have to look within first and actually acknowledge and accept the privilege that you have before you can do the anti-oppressive work. You know, it's about accountability, and Danielle and I talk a lot around accountability when it comes to this work. So thank you. Fiona, I see your hand. I'm just going to read a few things first that I've seen in the chat. Oh, sorry. Just going all the way to the bottom. Okay. So Angelica, you're welcome. It's nice to hear that it was nourishing for you. Nick, you felt sadness. Sally said, I think it's interesting to hear firsthand your experience, something some of us don't have to consider. Carol, thank you, Marcelline. It was deeply moving. You're welcome. And Dan, again, thanking me of your thoughts and moving words. You're welcome, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Fiona.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you, Marcelline, for taking us on that walk. And thank you, Christine, for your feedback. It's I found it refreshing to hear you speak so candidly about owning what's ours. For me, that walk, somebody in the chat you just read out their message said nourishing. I think that really describes how that walk felt for me. And I instantly imagined walking with my best friend down the road as you gave us that scenario. And my best friend looks like me. So we were having a conversation, and the conversation was the scenario you shared. And just this week, so that was a feeling, that was a thought that came up for me. And I just wanted to share very briefly a feeling that I had. This week, I took on a new supervisee who doesn't look like me and who is less melanated than I am. And so we had the session, and at the end of the session, I asked her, why did she choose me? And she said it was based on my experience, and she wanted somebody who had worked with children and young people to support her. And she then said something that made me wonder. She said, when I saw you, I saw your smile. I didn't see your color. I don't see color. And I instantly thought, well, then you don't see me. And I was aware that I felt very frustrated at that point. But then I also thought, okay, but this is going to be a learning curve for you, because you're going to see me during the work. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, because I think there's still many counsellors, therapists, psychologists who yeah, they don't see, or maybe they feel very uncomfortable being able to name what they see. And I just thought that was interesting, that somebody chose to work with me, but somehow missed a very obvious part of me. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Fiona. And what it does highlight as well, so Danielle and myself, we done a presentation or workshop this morning for leadership courses. And, you know, when we talk about anti-oppressive practice and we talk about race and culture, it would, you know, you've instantly visualized firstly more someone who is white middle class as the leader, and the person who they may be supervising is someone from a racialized community. So to hear someone like yourself who is considered a leader, to have someone who does not look like you to turn around and say, it's because I saw your smile and not your color. The thoughts that came to mind for me instantly was, why did they feel the need to say that or to answer the question in that way? I felt a sense of defensiveness to tell you straight away that I'm not racist. You know, I'm not, that's what she meant maybe by I don't see color. And instantly you may think to yourself, actually, maybe I may not be the right supervisor for this person, but I like the fact that you said that this will be a learning experience for them, because that's part of the work. Instead of deciding, saying, actually, I'm not the right fit because of what you've just said, actually, I'm the best fit because of what you've just said, because I am going to educate you on why you should be seeing color, because it's an important element in the work that you're going to be doing. As therapists, I always say, we have our clients who come to us vulnerable, telling strangers sensitive things about themselves, you know, pushing past their discomfort. Why can't we do the same? That should be one of the key things that we should be able to do. Push past our discomfort, have these uncomfortable conversations, you know, allow ourselves to be vulnerable when it comes to race and culture. Because if you think about it, it's a bit hypocritical, isn't it, to be working as a therapist and expecting clients to be vulnerable and to share their stories and to push past discomfort, but we can't deal with discomfort ourselves. What is that about? Someone now, thank you, Fiona. A few more things in the chat. Oh, many more things in the chat. I'm wondering if someone can read them out to me, please. I'm struggling with the multitasking.
Got just another couple of minutes, Marcelline, before we need to move on. Yeah, some lovely comments coming up in the chat there. Messages for Fiona. I agree, Fiona. I love how you managed that situation. It sounds both compassionate and generous. The work of the coalition has been immensely valuable, and I've been promoting this work in all areas of education, training, practice and research. I like the word accountability. Thank you, Jocelyn. I think that's really important as well. And then Christy Brown, exactly, not to see our ontological differences is not to value the person. I love what you're saying. Thank you both. That was really, thank you all. That was really really brilliant. Marcelline, did you want to wrap up with a thought?
Yes, so where we are at now in terms of the journey is we've been doing a lot of training, facilitating a lot of training. Some of the things that you've seen in the toolkit, there's been a few changes to some of those things. So we've introduced an accountability worksheet now for people to engage with as well within the workplace. I'm just going to share a quick thing, and in the toolkit you could see that there is a cycle of change. So the cycle of change has also been updated, where now we're also prompting you to think about your thoughts and feelings that you experience at each stage as well. One thing that you will notice is that fear is almost at every stage. So there could be that fear, the feeling of fear that you experience, that contemplation because of implementing change. People tend to fear change. And you could also be experiencing fear at maintenance, where the fear of maintaining the change, experiencing the barriers, you know, people challenging these the implementation of anti-oppressive practice. So those are some of the changes that we have made. And what I will also say, sorry. Yeah, so that's some of the stuff that we've been doing now in terms of the toolkit. And one more thing I will show you as well is this one around unhelpful thinking patterns. So, you know, when we're thinking about cognitive distortions, we have started to also implement the idea of thinking about cognitive distortions in racism and also anti-oppressive practice. So some of the thinking patterns that we may experience in this work is, for example, catastrophizing, personalization, overgeneralizing, black and white thinking as well. And we felt that it could be quite helpful to have something visual as well to process through with you when you're doing this type of work as well. Okay, so these are the thinking patterns that are being experienced as we're doing this work. So I'll leave it as that because of time, but guys, yeah, we're still doing the work. I will say that Danielle and myself, in terms of the cycle of change, we are probably still on, I would say, action. I was contemplating whether we're on action or maintenance. It's very easy to say maintenance because we're doing the work, but I don't feel like enough has been done yet to say that we're maintaining the change, because we're facilitating training, we're coming up with new worksheets that people can use, but we're still on action. We're not on that. We're not on maintenance just yet. So have a think about as well throughout today where you think you guys are at now in terms of that cycle of change. And thank you again for your thoughts and your feedback.
Thank you so much, Marcelline. Absolutely amazing. Do you want to stop sharing your screen? Thank you so much. Just to remind everybody that if you've got questions, I mean, so much brilliant stuff there in that 3-minute section, Marcelline. I'm sure it's generated lots of more questions from people. Don't forget that in the bottom of the screen, if you go over and click more, there's a Q&A box. We will be receiving, nobody else will be able to see your questions except us. But if questions come to you, just pop them in there, and then we can make sure that we get those to Marcelline. But now, the Contemporary Institute of Clinical Sexology, or CICS, Julie Sale and Natasha Anderson approached us back in October, or a bit later, interested in joining the coalition. And what prompted them to want to join the coalition was the toolkit. That was their inspiration. So I'm really delighted that they've agreed today to come along with their colleague Rosemary Gordon to tell us about the impact that the toolkits had on their institution. Over to you guys.
Thank you, everyone. Just bear with me while I share my screen. It's Julie here speaking. Okay, is that visible to everybody? Thank you. Okay, so we are going to spend the next 15-20 minutes just talking through how the toolkit has influenced our approach at CICS, as we call ourselves, Contemporary Institute of Clinical Sexology. I will be speaking with my colleagues here. Here on the left is Natasha Anderson Foster in the yellow shirt here online. Natasha is our anti-oppression consultant, anti-oppressive practice consultant. And here on my right on the screen is Rosemary Gordon, who's going to give us a wave. Give us a wave, Rosemary, who is a graduate of our qualifying pathway and also now a teacher at CICS. And we're going to be sharing the space here in this presentation. Just a quick word to explain who we are. We're a specialist sex and relationship therapy trainee organisation, and we provide qualification pathways for people to lead to registration as sex and relationship therapists with the College of Sexual and Relationship Therapists, which is the BACP, UKCP equivalent for sex and relationship therapists in the UK. So we're a specialist training organisation, therapy training organisation focused on psychosexual and relationship therapy. I think it's very important to frame our presentation today. We are here to share, not to show. We want to tell a story of how the Racist Complicated Toolkit has influenced our anti-oppressive and inclusive practices. We have by no means nailed this. This is not a subject one can nail. And as Marcelline has highlighted, that process and cycle of change is something we need to continue to be consciously engaged in. It's a deliberate, ongoing and evolving picture. We don't reach an ending and stay there. We're not claiming any successes or role model status. We're here to share, and beyond this presentation, we're here to listen and to learn. My colleague Natasha is now going to talk us through what we were up to at CICS before we received the toolkit. Natasha.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Natasha Anderson-Foster. I'm the anti-oppression consultant, and my role involves identifying any barriers within CICS and ensuring that we have an inclusive learning environment. So I'm going to talk through what we were doing prior to receiving this wonderful toolkit. In 2020, we established a clear anti-racism statement, which articulates our zero tolerance stance on racism. We've had an EDI strategy and plan which sets out our clear goals and actions that promote equality and diversity within course design and recruitment. And in terms of race and racism is a theme throughout the CICS courses. And especially in the first year, we include lessons on race and racism, where we're addressing culture, religion, power, oppression, privilege, and intersectionality. We have compulsory reading on Black British history, and we make a point of including works by Black academics. Given that psychotherapy narrative has been white-led, we feel like this is an essential action. Quite early on, we introduced anatomy diagrams, which were reflective of global majority skin tones. We have lived experience experts as our teachers that provide authentic voices. And we have Black and Brown teachers in general teaching roles, teaching on their special interest topics. So our guiding principles are inclusivity, relational warmth, and uncompromising quality. And we also feel that racism is a safeguarding issue. And so we want to make sure that we're creating a space where our students can reach their full potential.
Thank you, Natasha. So all that sounds great, doesn't it? However, our lived experience as teachers and students in the spaces that when we're running through our programs is that when the subject of race comes up, these are the responses. We still have responses of fear, silence, shut down, anger, all of the emotional range that you can see here. And that became a really deep source of reflection for myself. I've been engaged in my own personal and professional anti-racist learning and development for a number of years. And here I am with, great intentions and all the, the approaches I can think of, and still we can't experience any conversation around this without a constriction or an aggression, a fight or flight response. So I set about trying to work out how I could address the silence and the fear. And I started to rework our race and racism pre-recorded video lessons. I wanted to rework them, sit with them, see how I could change them to improve the communication, to make the spaces feel safer. This is all pre the toolkit. So I start my rework. I rework our race and racism direct video lesson, and I share it with my colleagues, Natasha and Rosemary. And Rosemary gives me some really important feedback on rework 1. And Rosemary's going to talk us through that now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rosemary Gordon, and I'm a graduate at CICS. I'm also one of the co-tutors for one of the programs they run. I think it's just important for me to say that I was unaware of the toolkit until second rework. And that I'm just really going to share my experience of actually giving feedback. So as a student on the course a few years ago, there was an experience during one of the modules where it was a conversation on gender and privilege, and there was a slight intersectional lens hadn't quite been adopted, and it just landed in quite an awkward way. And there was a moment where it felt like things could have went really left. And watching the faculty sit with the discomfort and address it in the moment kind of gave a reassurance that, okay, they want to hear, they're taking it seriously. And the reason I share this is because if I had given feedback and it wasn't acknowledged, the chance of me engaging or giving further feedback wouldn't happen. I would just think I'm wasting my energy. So when I was asked to review the resource, I thought, okay, they're responsive, so let me be honest. I watched it first time, and the first thing I took away was white people should not feel uncomfortable when talking about race. And I watched it again and again because I thought I must be missing something here. But this kept coming up, and I was finding more and more evidence to support my initial feelings about it. And it made me really angry and disappointed. And I really thought long and hard about how to give feedback and how to package it. And I wrote it and rewrote it. And eventually I whittled it down to a few key points. And this is an excerpt here of my feedback. And I sort of ended it with, you know, what is everybody else sitting with? Just kind of an awareness that the conversation isn't necessarily comfortable for everyone. And then just maybe a challenge around, is it possible to be well informed, understand history in the context of race, and expect not to feel uncomfortable when discussing the subject? And so I eventually handed my feedback back to Julie. But there was a quote that really helped kind of ground me, because this was quite activating for me. And I just want to share the quote. And it says, "Hope has 2 daughters, anger and courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to see that they do not need to remain the same." And that really just helped frame that if I do want things to be better for those coming after me, then it's important to speak up. And I'll hand that to you.
So, serendipitously and thankfully, at this moment, the Race is Complicated toolkit lands in our awareness, and it lands in my awareness because my colleague Natasha brings it to my awareness. And I've just then, in this experience, been given the absolute gift of feedback from colleagues whose opinion I really value. And I was invited to reflect further on why my genuinely positive intentions were not translating into a form of communication that was landing in the right place. And I really was called further into my own reflective practice. And this is where the toolkit really made a difference for me. So I've summarized on this slide what the gifts of the toolkit were for me. At CICS, I'm the founding director, I'm the organisational lead, I'm the programme lead for our qualification pathway, and I'm also the teacher. So I've all of the stages, all of the levels of an organisation that has responsibility for dealing with anti-oppressive practice. I hold them all. And it's very important to me that I get this as right as I can get it. So along with Rosemary's invitation to, no, let's think about this, Julie, and you might have good intentions, but they're not landing in the right space. The toolkit also offers an invitation. It offers an invitation to explore introspectively, and to reflect and to go deep with it. And the first major gift of the toolkit for me is the way that it's structured. It's structured immediately with built-in pauses for meditating, mindfulness pauses, and for slowing down to acknowledge the effect that this subject has on all of us when we think about it. So that invitation to reflect even deeper, and the structure of building in pauses that is predicated on the understanding that this is an affecting subject. As Rosemary said, how do you expect to speak about it without it being affecting? That's comes with the territory, Julie. Really helped me to restructure the resources I was working on. So I reflected the structure of the toolkit in the structure of our resource, and built in preparatory sections on what it was going to be like to listen to the video, how it was going to impact on us, and building in significant pause points in the online resource. So it gave me that structure that had demonstrated the care I was feeling, but wasn't being translated. The other major gift for me was that the toolkit connects this theme, this confronting theme of race and racism, with our therapy theory and knowledge. It's really blindingly obvious, but it helped me to have it directly pointed out. So there's the toolkit is addressing how psychotherapy trainings can do a better job of dealing with this theme, or working with this theme. And the toolkit does so by referencing key approaches in psychotherapy theory. So Roger's stages of process, this helped me to reflect on, we might be looking like we're doing a lot, but we're not doing enough. So it gave me an idea of the stage we were at as an organisation. And really importantly, connected me to connecting the themes of race and racism, how to teach and talk about them, with my knowledge of compassion and trauma-informed approach to teaching. So that gift of structuring the toolkit with the framing of pausing, self-reflection and self-care, and then the connection that the toolkit makes between this subject and this experience with our embedded psychotherapy knowledge, and then the real kind of depth of, listen, fear is behind a lot of this, and these are the kinds of emotions that are underneath fear. And that somatic awareness, this quote, a somatic awareness of bias, being invited to check in with your body. Where are you feeling your responses, and how is that informing your bias? Well, that was just a wow. So these are the highlight gifts I took from that toolkit, went away with the feedback from Rosemary, and had another go. So rework number 2 was sent to Rosemary, who has the patience and the tolerance to look at it again. Back to you, Rosemary.
Thank you. I was quite surprised at how quickly the rework had turned around, and I was a little bit skeptical if it had changed that much in such a short period of time. It was a bit like, oh, so I'm going to put myself through this again. The first thing I noticed about the rework was that it was now double the length, and that the tone shifted massively from what was quite cold and kind of over there. There was this real kind of invitation to be gentle as you move through this material, and pauses built in. The original feedback, which I didn't actually send to Julie, but was really, really detailed, had things in there which kind of bugged me, but I thought, okay, let's focus on the big things. Let's leave the little things alone. But was pleasantly surprised when those things I hadn't mentioned had been removed and addressed. And I was just really pleasantly surprised. And my feedback to her was, just watch the video, and I'm honestly moved by the depth and understanding portrayed in the video. I think it's significantly better than before. And as I just said, things that I hadn't mentioned had been actually removed. And we've had discussions. It's an evolving resource, and there's still more to do, but it's changed so much and lands so much better. Yeah, thanks, Julie. So
what Rosemary describes there as kind of cold and over there was, I think, part of my fear and constriction, and how I'd been experiencing the difficulty of breaking through a barrier of being able to hold for our organisation this theme in a more effective and appropriate way. I'm not known for coldness, I'm known for warmth. So there was something about this theme that was really, affecting me. And the difference that made the difference, two differences that make the difference in the way that we reworked these resources, are my two colleagues and their courage in speaking to me, and this toolkit, which is gold. On time and stopping there, Nikki.
Thank you all so much. That was so brilliant. It was so well articulated. I think actually I'm not going to say anything because I could talk for ages. Marcelline, I was wondering whether you wanted to reflect on what you'd just heard and how it landed with you.
It's I keep wanting to say this throughout this process, that it's just so satisfying, because with this type of work, I've always said to myself, I'll believe it when I see it, because we speak a lot around, losing momentum, and Danielle and myself, that's the reason why we implemented the idea of safeguarding anti-oppressive practice, because what tends to happen in this type of work is that an incident happens that is shared all over the media, social media, there's an uproar, organizations, businesses say, okay, so what should we do about this? And okay, tick box exercise, anti-racism, tick, 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 tick. A bit of tokenism here, a bit of unconscious bias training there. We've ticked all our boxes. And then, the incident gets old, and then people lose momentum until something else happens that is shared within the media. And then that's just a cycle that we tend to get stuck in as a society. And we wanted to get out of that cycle. So this is why we said safeguarding anti-oppressive practice, because if we look at it from a safeguarding approach, that means there's policies, there's procedures, there's inductions when people go into new work environments and spaces. People know what policies and strategies to follow when there are incidents around racism and oppression within training institutions or working environments. So to actually hear an institution implement the work to the extent that you guys have done so far is, it's very hopeful, and it shows that people are reading the toolkit and taking it in. So I can't thank you enough. And we've spoken about fear as well before outside of the space. Julie, we have spoken about the idea of fear, and it sounds like, you've pushed past your discomfort and you found the right balance in seeking help from people like Rosemary and Natasha, but also not using them as tokens. And so you've done from what I see, it sounds like there's been collaborative work there. There's been co-production and not necessarily tokenism. And I really appreciate that. And I guess my question is, people may be wondering, how do you find that balance? And I'm wondering, because you have done the work, if you can maybe share that with us, to, you know, finding that right balance where you are doing the co-production and you are I guess doing your research and accessing the support and guidance and amplifying the voices of people from racialized communities, but you're also not using them as tokens.
You directing that question to myself, Marcelline?
Yes, because you've experienced this, and I feel like you found the right balance with that. And maybe also it'll be good to hear what Rosemary and Natasha have to say about their experience of working with yourself, Julie, around this.
Yeah, so it's interesting. As I think about your question, what comes up for me is that when I think about balance, I think of, you know, equal and shared. And I actually think in this situation, it's my responsibility to do more, not for it to be half and half, but for me to be the person who's doing the majority of the work, because I'm racialized white. I come with the privilege. I lead this organization. I have more work to do. So that's the first thing I think of, is that I think the leaders of organizations, all of the different, you know, the leaders, the program leads, the teachers, we hold the responsibility. So I think the balance more, the effect to be more that way. I think in terms of tokenism, I think it's just abhorrent to me, and the whole idea of, you know, of tokenism is abhorrent to me, because everything that I bring to my work as a therapist and a teacher and a school lead is integrated, you know, authenticity and deep values. So that's what I want to live by, which is why we've articulated our 3 values at CICS that we try and navigate our organisation by. So, and I think also that sense of tokenism can minimise or suggest that there's a lack of agency in colleagues who are Black or brown. And I don't have a relationship with Natasha or Rosemary in which I perceive them as not having agency, or them perceiving they don't have agency with me, which I hope comes through from the way that we describe the process that we went through. That's kind of where I'm at with that. It's another question for me to reflect on. I'd love to hand to Rosemary and Natasha for you to contribute to that.
Yeah, I feel like my experience of working with CICS is, it's not an organisation that is doing lip service, is ticking boxes on an EDI strategy. I can have those conversations, really uncomfortable conversations, and Julie will go away and reflect on it. And it's also my experience from being on a course provided by CICS, where I've had a similar experience to that of Rosemary's, where I felt heard and I felt like my feelings were managed. And actually it was a really good moment for the students to learn to see something that was quite activating happening, but it was also a safe space. So I think for me, I wouldn't be here if my ideas and my opinions, or if I felt like it was lip service and there was tick boxes. I can see that what I've suggested is put into action, and CICS is open to having uncomfortable conversations. And I've not experienced that. I've not actually experienced that with another organisation as yet.
Thank you so much. I suppose as well, with the element of tokenism, from experiences, people aren't always aware that they're using people from racialized communities as tokens. It can come as, okay, we've got this EDI strategy and we need to do a workshop on racism. And then they go and they look at the person from the racialized community, not actually really knowing or understanding that you're treating them as a token, you're using them as a token. And what I'm hearing from Julie that I really liked is that it's not about balance for you, it's your responsibility, again talking about accountability, that you need to do the work. You can get the guidance from them, but you're the one that actually needs to do the work. And you can also see it as you using your power and your privilege to make these changes, because we talk about power and privilege as well. And one question I actually said in training this morning when someone was talking about power and privilege, they were saying about having to remove their power and privilege. And I was saying to them, well, I'm wondering if the question is about removing your power and privilege, or it's about how you use your power and privilege, because the reality is the power and privilege you have tend to be based on the color of your skin. And Danielle and myself, we do talk in terms of how you can use the power and privilege you have to do this work. It's not about hiding it and saying you don't want it and you don't like the idea of having it. We can see that you have it, but use it for good, use it to make positive changes, rather than, I guess, wanting to come across as a humble individual that is against racism. Yeah, so it goes back to that accountability. I am taking accountability, like Christine mentioned earlier, that I am white and I am privileged. And I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for myself or for people from racialized communities. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use that power and privilege to use my voice to amplify the voices of people from racialized communities and to encourage people to do the work.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm really keen for you guys to be able to get into breakout rooms and hear from each other and your responses to that. I think one of the things that sprung to mind was that tokenism is a sort of, if you sort of see the revolution that's needed in white people like me, it's a hearts and minds revolution. It can't just be one or the other. It has to be both. And tokenism, I think, comes from the minds bit. You can be thinking all the right things, as Julie was saying, but I think what the toolkit does, and as you said at the beginning, Marcelline, is it's that embodied. It's the when you can embody an understanding of it, and that's the heart bit. It's that sort of, and that's what the toolkit's really focused on, is those pauses, as is Myra's book. That's sort of taking the time to breathe, to kind of address the fear that fizzes through your veins, and until you do both the hearts and the minds bits, then it's not real. It's only half done, kind of thing. And even when you've got the hearts and minds bit, it still has to go on. So
can I just
thank you. Yeah, go on, Julie.
No, you may want to move on to the breakout rooms, but I just want to share just one key learning for my colleagues here who are course leaders. My experience with Natasha and Rosemary is that it's very important to give longer periods of space and time than you typically would in a conversation for your colleagues who are racialized in the way that we're trying to address here, that to tell you how they feel. So, literally in a conversation, shutting up for long enough for them to properly tell you how they feel. It's a very simple thing, but it's,
yes, I think that's brilliant.
And just remaining quiet long enough because people, my colleagues here, Natasha and Rosemary, are thinking in that walk alongside me way that we had with Marceline's guidance. Is it okay for me to say this to her? Can I say this to her? Because not only am I white, I'm in charge. So can I say this to her? Yeah, I think I can, but I'm just going to work through that before I do. So that beat of extra time. I hope that's okay to say, Rosemary and Natasha. I think we've talked about this together, I think. So I just wanted to add that.
And Nikki, as you put people in the breakout rooms, I just felt obliged to say to you guys, when you reflect in these rooms, is okay, we've ticked all the boxes now. What do we do now? Yeah, have a think about that.
Absolutely. And I think it's so inspiring. I think there's lots of fuel there to take into the breakout rooms. So each breakout room has got an allocated facilitator to keep everybody to time and on task and focused. And somebody will be scribing as well to capture the headline thoughts. We'll put the questions in the, sorry, poor Lucy's trying to organise the rooms while people are dropping out and coming back in and dropping out. So it's a bit of a movable feast. Anyway, you will be in a breakout room in a sec. You'll be looking at these questions, and a scribe will be capturing them. So I think we want everybody to be just hearing from each other about all the brilliant things that you're doing. So we've got, how long have we got now? How long? We've got half an hour, so we've got a bit of time. So we'll see you back here in half an hour.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. How was that, everybody? Was it okay? Was it medium? Rubbish? Ours was great, good. Okay.
Well, I was expecting not to facilitate, and suddenly I was facilitating, so I was a bit of apart from that, perfect.
Good. I'm glad. Well, I hope there was for someone to facilitate every room, and that we've got a few notes to share with with Lucy. There are no more questions in the. Oh yes, we'll be putting the recording. Yes, we'll post. Sorry, I've got the comms team here with me to say that we will post the. So when we'll post it on our website, but also what I'm planning to do is also try and capture all of the pre-survey, the breakout room chat, and we're about to do a poll as well. And what I'm going to try and do is kind of pull the whole coalition and toolkit story into a kind of report, which we'll share with everybody that's here on this call, and then the various coalition member organisations can take bits of that to kind of to report to their own members on the journey. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks I'm going to put a nice report in. Bex has just shared where the recording will be, which of course you're more than welcome to share with friends and colleagues who couldn't make it. Do you want to put the link to the toolkit in chat one more time? There was a couple of people who may not have actually seen the toolkit yet, but are now absolutely desperate to get their hands on it because it's so wonderful. I am just going to pounce on the wonderful Myra Khan. I don't know whether you said yes to this, Myra, whether you saw it in the chat. Myra was the well, obviously stalwart cord group coalition member, but you were also facilitating one of the breakout rooms. And she's so good at pulling together thoughts in a really clear and coherent way. I was going to ask you, Myra, to reflect on what you took away from your breakout room. We won't be able to hear from all of them, but
yeah, I kind of absolutely want to kind of call on Sarah Houghton to also kind of co-feedback with me as well, because it ended up being where I ended up being facilitating a group when nobody in my group could speak, so we all got reallocated. So I ended up being in a room with Sarah, but it's fine. I can give back kind of my bit of feedback, and I appreciate, Sarah, if you also want to kind of jump in and feedback as well. I suppose three kind of I think three main points that I'd like to feedback. I think one is around which was actually the final point that was being spoken about, which I really loved, this idea that the toolkit in any work that we do around anti-oppressive practice is not just applicable academically. And for anyone that's familiar with my work and with the toolkit will know absolutely that this is about embodying it, and it's about not it being a tick box, and absolutely anti-oppressive practice is relational. So this is not just a case of adding in anti-oppressive practice as an additional module or a one-day training to a course when the rest of it still remains unconsciously and unintentionally oppressive. So I love that that point was being made. Second point, very quickly, we spoke about terminology, and actually what's really important and what was being recognised is that understanding terminology is essential when we are thinking about anti-oppressive practice and everything and every concept that comes under that umbrella, because it can be so easy for people to say, oh, I'm an anti-oppressive practitioner, or yes, I work anti-oppressively, if we don't actually recognise what it is that we're doing differently. Because if we're not doing something differently to what we were doing before we said we were anti-oppressive, we actually aren't, we're still being unintentionally oppressive. So I think it's really important that if we are using this terminology, to ensure that we're kind of not backing it up, but we can demonstrate it relationally. We can demonstrate it in our actions, in how we do our contracting and everything else therapeutically, that anti-oppressive practice is a core dynamic in the work that we do, in the approach that we do. And I think one of the barriers to that then is that we can, again, what was discussed was, we can end up unintentionally being caught up in trying to figure out the terminology and not actually get on with doing the work, doing the relational work itself. And that can kind of serve as a way to keep arm's length from actually doing the work. So understanding terminology is really important, but also don't get caught up in it and not do the work as well. Then the third and final point was that question around, have you been disrupting the status quo? There was a little discussion around kind of the weighting behind that word and how we each might relate to the word disruptive, because it can be felt as, on the one hand, aggressive. It can be felt as very kind of clashing heads. It can be felt as quite confrontational, but also disrupting can be about being a change maker. It can be about making a difference, and we can be, for the fact that we're all here in this space together, we are all disruptors, but we are doing it gently and kindly and empathically and relationally. And so we were kind of had a really good discussion around what it actually means to be a disruptor. So I hope that does justice to the group that I found myself being flung into. But Sarah, please do jump in and share your highlights as well.
And that is why Nikki called on you and not on me, Myra.
I knew that everybody'd really, really want to hear from Myra, because that's probably one of the reasons that they're here. But Sarah, anything that she missed?
Absolutely not. I suppose, but like my very tiny personal experience of that is even in a half-hour conversation about this is a space for learning from each other and sort of hearing some things differently. So that the opportunities are always there.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I would really very much like now everybody to, hang on a minute, I'm just trying to move this slide on because yeah, so in the chat, could you all please share one action that you've been inspired to take after today? We've got, 2 minutes to do that. So we'd like a whole stream of actions. We talked about accountability. Each one of us individually can do a thing, let's say, within the next 3 months, quarter of a year. What is that one action that you've been inspired to take?
Mickey, you're on mute.
Sorry, well, I've been chatting away to myself. Okay, sorry, there's one more thing that you, I don't know what I'd do without you, Angelica. There's one more thing, yeah, that we need you to do before you're allowed to go. And that is a poll, which I'm going to put up in a minute. But just to contextualise, the aim of this event was to inform, enthuse, and energise us all as educators in the counselling and psychotherapy field in our endeavours to embed and safeguard anti-oppressive practice in our courses and institutions. So could you answer the poll so that we can see what you found most helpful about today, and so that we can work out what it is that would be helpful for training providers moving forward. So we're going to launch the poll now. Nobody can see what you've answered. So off you go. And while you're all doing that, Marcelline, I'm just going to invite you to, if you just to see whether you've got any reflections or thoughts for the end of the evening. I'll stop sharing. Hang on. You still there?
No, I'm here. Can you see me?
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
I suppose the journey to being a change maker is it's not easy. Starting the change itself is hard. Maintaining it is even harder. And there will be barriers, there will be resistance, and there'll be times that you'll question yourselves because other people may question you and may challenge you. And this is why it's important to have those check-ins with yourselves and with others as well. And maybe just journaling as well, this journey, making a note of what your goals are so that you have something to reflect back to when the journey does get tough. Just have faith, trust the process, and always remember why you're doing this, why we're doing this, because there are people out there, especially when we're thinking about trainees, like I once were, who will really appreciate the work that you're doing, will no longer feel so isolated or question their worth or their capability or whether they are in the right profession. Because I once was that person. And if I had more of this when I was training, I wouldn't have had to do work around my own insecurities and my own worth as a counselor and psychotherapist. So just continue with the process, guys. Thank you for coming. It's been so rewarding. You've been a great group to engage with. And I am truly overwhelmed by the amount of people who attended today and who have also engaged. And you know, the fact that this is a free event and there's still so many people who attended, so money wasn't holding you accountable for attending, it shows the passion and the dedication for this cause. So thank you. And if you have any questions or if you need any support with anything, please do feel free to contact Danielle and myself. I will put our email in the chat as well. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, do that now, Marcelline, because we've only got another 90 seconds before we're closing. And 90 more seconds on the poll. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Thank you so much, Marcelline, for holding the fort. Send lots of love to Danielle. Say we're very, very sorry not to see her today. There's been a few questions, a couple of questions about joining the coalition. I did jot down an answer in the chat about what we're going to take a bit of a pause with the coalition now to sort of think about what's next. I'm stepping down as chair at the end of next week, so we're going to be moving into a new phase. But there will be activities, and you will hear more. But before I go, I will write all of this up and send it out. We'll send a report out to everyone who's been here today. Okay. All set. Look at that, I'm on time. Isn't that amazing? I mean, absolutely incredible.
Thank you for everything.
All right, have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you
Look after yourselves.
Bye-bye.
Okay, take
Thank
care.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.